Tom Brady, I call him the GOAT today. GOAT Brady. You know, everybody's talking about what he said on Stephen A's podcast. And they're approaching it in a different way than what I'm approaching it. Because, he was speaking in terms of what he thinks about the NFL product right now. And he started discussing what he thinks about it. And that clip went out, and even Aaron Rodgers responded and said he agrees that it's gotten a little soft, and the physicality should be part of the game, and they're trying to take it out. And he said what he had to say, and I play what he said, and I respond to it and all this stuff. But I want to approach it from a different angle, because what he said is not just true for football; it's also true for other sports as well. And specifically, I think it's true for basketball and the NBA product. And what Tom Brady is speaking to, Adam Silver spoke to on pretty much along the same lines, but opposite, where he felt like he was doing the league a favor by taking the physicality out. And he was explaining that to Kevin Garnett on his podcast, Certified. So I want to play both of those clips. I'm going to play for what Tom Brady said first. And then I'm going to play what Adam Silver said, and then you hear my thoughts on it. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy sports. I want to tell you about the easiest way to get in on some NBA action with Underdog Fantasy and their pick'em game. Just find your favorite player, or any player for that matter, pick higher or lower on that player's stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in one night. Pick between 2 or 5 players to fill your pick'em entry. Get every pick right, and you can net yourself some serious cash. Use the promo code ManDownSports, and you can get your deposit doubled up to $100. You got to check on the map to make sure your state is eligible to play Underdog Fantasy. But as soon as you do, and if your state is, go ahead and download Underdog Fantasy's app. Use the promo code ManDownSports, and you can, like I said, you can get that $100 match on your first deposit. And I would want to thank Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring Man Down Sports. All right, so Tom Brady, let's hear what he had to say.
And I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. Yeah. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past.
Why not?
Why not?
Why do you think that is?
I think the coaching isn't as good as it was. I don't think the development of young players is as good as it was. I don't think the schemes are as good as they were. I think the rules have allowed a lot of bad habits to get into the actual performance of the game. Mm-hmm. So I just think the product, in my opinion, is less than what it's been. I think guys are competitive, guys play hard. I look at a lot of players like Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison and Ronnie Lott, and guys that impacted the game in a certain way, and every hit they would have made would have been a penalty. And I you hear coaches complaining about their own player being tackled, and not necessarily, why don't they talk to their player about how to protect himself, how to get rid of the ball, how to throw it, how to run out of bounds, how to get down, how to lower your pad level. We used to work on the fundamentals of those things all the time. Now they're trying to be regulated all the time. I think the offensive players need to protect themselves. It's not up to the defensive player to protect the offensive player. A defensive player needs to protect himself. You shouldn't ask the offensive player to protect him. And I think a lot of the way that the rules have come into play have allowed this. You can essentially play carefree, and then if anyone hits you hard, there's a penalty. And it's very different than how I played. I didn't throw the ball to certain areas because I was afraid players were going to get knocked out. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. Wow. I didn't throw it to the middle when I played Ray Lewis because you knock him out of the game, and I couldn't afford to lose a good player. So guys like that, the only way to beat skill was physicality. And that was a physical sport. You don't get into a boxing match and say, I want to beat you, but I don't really want to hit you that hard. It's up to you. Now the rest there to make sure nothing is done unfairly or, hit below the belt. There's a few rules. Right. I believe that if players have an opportunity to protect themselves, they need to protect themselves.
So toward the end, you heard him say first of all, he's talking about all the rule changes that are coming in is making the product actually a worse product for viewership. Like, it's less football being played because you're putting so many rules in it. And I get it. We like player safety and all that stuff, man. The stuff for the concussions and the heads and all that stuff. I'm with that, right? I'm 100% with that, man. The head injuries is it's unfortunate for players to retire and make all these millions and don't even get a chance to enjoy it because they're in so much pain for the rest of their lives. They got joints that are degenerative, and then when you add the head injuries to it, that's just a bad deal for everybody, man, because having CTE is one of the worst things I can imagine, right? Like there's no painkiller for that you can get up and take and this headache could go away. Like, so the story of Junior Seau and how he pretty much killed this, I can't even say the words, but pretty much deleted himself because what was going on in his head was so unbearable, the pain and the headache, but not only that, just other things that was going on with his brain. That's sad. So yeah, I'm all for player safety and taking away whatever they need to take away that help with the head injuries. But they trying to take away any injury, it seems like, right? And we know that's part of it. Like, yeah, people are gonna break ankles when they get rolled up on, and no one likes the horse collar. That's a safety issue. So yeah, they took that out of it. That's good. But taking everything out is just what is it doing for you? At some point, I don't think it's about player safety. I think it's about ratings and what fans, not people, not fans who play football and who understand all that stuff and and just want to see 100% football. I'm talking about people who probably never grew up playing football, who just like it because it's exciting to go to a game and see the speed and someone run 100-yard touchdown and all this, So they're changing rules to make it more of that, to appease a broader audience of people who not necessarily football fans. And so toward the end, he said the only way to beat skill was with physicality. So if you got a Wes Welker that's in the slot and he's fast, he's got good hands, he's quick, he got quick feet, and he's smart, and he can find a hole in the zone across the middle. And then you have a quarterback like Tom Brady who can make those throws and who can see that. He just said that he wouldn't even send Welker across the middle when Ray Lewis was there against the Ravens, because he said he knew he was going to get his head taken off. So that skill level that Edelman had or Wes Welker had, they couldn't even really rely on it that much across the middle because, there was a guy that was ready to take your head off in Ray Lewis. So that's the physicality that he's talking about. He said that's the only way you can stop skill. But when you take the element away and say, Ray Lewis, you can't take his head off, then now you can be like, oh, I can go across the middle. So now what I'm good at as a middle linebacker, as someone that's bigger than you that happens to be also fast and can hit and who want to hit, and I can do it legally and still punish you, right? For me, you're taking away what I'm good at. You're saying I can't do that. So now he gets to come. You're telling a fox that he can't. You're taking the teeth out of a fox and putting him in a sheep hen or hen house or something like that, right? And the hens can just do whatever they want to do now because that fox really can't devour them like he want to. Took his fangs away. That's basically what they're saying. They say, hey, look, man, you got to play their game. You specialize in physicality. He specializes in skill, but I'm going to change the rules in a way to where you have to beat him with skill and you can't use your physicality in most cases. That's what he's saying. And that's what Brady is saying, which reminded me exactly what Adam Silver was saying about basketball. Listen to what Adam Silver said.
Will there ever be a time when the hand check comes back?
There was a point, I believe, probably in around the late 90s when the game became too physical. And I think we lost some of
our viewers, you mean?
Yeah, and I think for our fans, from the aesthetic enjoyment of the game, where it de-emphasized the particular skill a player had and maybe weighted too heavily physicality, where a big, strong player could come in and prevent a incredibly skilled player from doing those kinds of things. I think of, not that he's a small guy, but a smaller player like Steph Curry can do on the floor. I think that his ability to shoot, his ability to move through the paint, that if guys could just bang him and knock him to the ground, as that was once the case in the league,
Right.
I don't think that would be a better brand of basketball.
Better? What do you mean it won't be a better brand of basketball? For who? Who's asking for 1,000 points a game? We just had a week where the Atlanta Hawks, who has Trae Young, who's a great scorer, great shooter, great basketball player, but he's slight of frame. He's small, right? We haven't seen people heat up like that from scoring that was challenged as far as height and size since Iverson. Sometimes even Isaiah could heat up if he wants to, but Isaiah wasn't like a 30-point per game scorer like Iverson was. But small guys like that, they was getting punished, but they was putting up the points. We have, and as good as Isaiah and Iverson had to be great scorers like that, you don't have to be that good now to put up Iverson numbers. And I'm not saying Trae Young's not on a high level, but I'm saying the type of scoring Trae Young is doing can be done by probably about 35 players in the league right now. I think every team has about 3 players, if they wanted to, can put up these points because it's so much freedom out there now. There's nothing stopping you from going out there and everything that you've practiced in the gym by yourself with a trainer, you can go out and go do in the NBA court. There used to be a time where you could have all of that and one mixtape, Ray for Austin, Skip the Malou stuff in your game, but you would never see it on the NBA court because, number one, the NBA didn't want it there. They'll call carry on you in a minute. They'll call travel in a minute just because they didn't want that game to look like that. It was a certain way they wanted that game to look. So Ray for Austin, as good as he could do all that stuff, you never seen him in the NBA game getting loose like that. And people didn't understand why, because the game is called a certain way. So my point is, Tom Brady is talking about physicality and how when you take it out of the game, now it's just all about skill. Now the physical guys don't really have a place in the game, and the game ain't the game no more. And then you parallel that to the NBA, and Adam Silver is saying the exact same words, skill and physicality. And he's telling you, just like I said at the beginning, you want it here where everybody, well, hold on, is that even? You want skill and physicality to be here where everybody who has skill can use it and everybody who has physicality can use it. And then we'll see which one is gonna, outlast if you ever come face to face. If you got a really, really highly skilled team and you got to playing against a really highly physical team, let's see which one wins. But the answer is not let's make rules to make the skill outweigh the physicality, because you can't even use your physicality within the rule book. So let's make it more about skill and create a gap between skill and physicality. That's what they've done in the NBA. And Adam Silver is admitting that that's what he done. And he's trying to say that that's what we wanted. Like, this is more pleasing to the eye. Like, this is a better game. This is what people want to see. And then you feed it to us and tell us that's what we want to see. But the numbers are not saying that. The ratings for the NBA are dropping to the point where you had to create an in-season tournament to peak interest in the regular season, where you haven't really done the research to understand why people are not tuning in. It don't have anything to do with players sitting out of games. That's a small part of it. People are not tuning in because the product is not that good. And you trying to do all these other little quick fixes and these little tweaks on the outside. What the main thing is the product is not we don't like it. You took defense out. You took post game out. It's all threes and rim runs. Boring as hell. Boring as hell. And then you forcing players down our throat and telling us that they're better than what our eyes is telling us, because you're trying to promote the league on a global scale. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not a good product. You're trying to control too much of it, right? So and what I meant by they're forcing players down our throat is when the league was a physical league, and Charles Oakley spoke to this. When the league was a physical league, you would get a player that wasn't a physical player come in that's highly skilled. Like you might get a Vlade Divac come in from Europe, and he's highly skilled, probably one of the most skilled big men that was in the league at that time. He could shoot the jumper, shoot the three, he could shoot free throws, he could dribble, he could pass, he could post up. Only thing he couldn't do is the physical stuff, play defense, block shots. He was 7 footer, so he got his fair share of blocks, and he gave the effort on defense. He wasn't lazy. So I'm not saying that he couldn't play defense. What I'm saying is anything that involved toughness, meanness, nastiness, physicality, and all that stuff, those were the things that he was least great at, but he was highly skilled. If they would have made that move back then to say, well, let's change the rules to where skill outweighs physicality, then Vlade Divac would have been a lot better than what he was historically and at that time frame. Because back then you could come in and be Vlade, and if I'm Shaq, I'm about to muscle you, I'm about to push you around on both ends of the floor, I'm about to intimidate you, I'm about to talk about your mom, I'm about to push you around, all this stuff. And nobody was ready for that. Nobody was ready for someone that grew up playing in the hood, that trash talk and was doing all that stuff and in your face, and then you bring a guy from European raised in love, and then you put them together. Yeah, it's gonna be that intimidation factor is gonna change a lot. That physicality factor is gonna change a lot. So all that skill you got, you can't even use it, homeboy. I'm pushing you around. You got to get tough to play in this league. Skill ain't gonna get it. You know what I mean? Toughness is gonna take you a long way, especially playing down low down here. Who cares that you can dribble the ball like a point forward? Guess what? No one's gonna let you do it. We don't coach like that. You gotta come down here, big dog. Who cares if you can shoot threes? You really gonna be out there. You got to come down here, right? So what we're seeing today from the explosion of highly skilled players ruling the court, and you don't have physical players that's out there being able to impose their will. Like centers like Andre Drummond can't even get in the game barely, right? He's great in the post. He can guard the post, he can defend, he can block shots, he can rebound, all the physical stuff he can do. But they're not playing the game with those guys in the post and in the paint like that. They're playing the game now where everyone's at the 3-point line. That's going to favor the highly skilled players. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to know what you're looking at when you're looking at it. And when you see a player, when you pull up the league leaders right there in the NBA and you see one player, it's probably 3 players averaging 32 points a game. De'Aaron Fox was just recently averaging 32. Embiid 32, Luka about 31. It might be a couple of, and it's more people. It's probably like 4 more people averaging 30, and then probably 4 more people averaging 28 or above. It's crazy. Like the top 10 to 15 scores are 28 and above, between 28 and 32 points. Right? You only had 1 or 2 guys doing that in the 90s. Points was hard to come by. Right, and not only are those guys averaging 32, like you take Embiid for instance, averaging 32. His second best scorer in Tyrese Maxey had a 50-point game this season already. Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum averaging 28, but guess what? He had a game where he had 30. His second best player, Jaylen Brown, had 30, and his third best player in Porzingis had 30. Kyrie Irving is one of the best scorers in the league, but guess what? He's taking the back seat to Luka, who's averaging 31. Kyrie's averaging about 25. Like the scoring is unreal, and people think as soon as you see those numbers, that automatically means it's better scorers in today's league, and don't factor in the fact that they actually changed the rules, changed the way the game is played, and created a gap between skill and physicality purposely to create an environment for more points. They've been trying to figure out how to get more points in the NBA because they think points connect to ratings. So more points is always going to be gold for the NBA. They're trying to figure out how to get more points, and they figured it out. They changed the game, more European style, less physicality, more skill, more shots going up, more threes, faster pace. It's just unreal. And they purposely created that environment, and people can't decipher between it and say, you know what, just because you averaging 30 does not mean you are as great of a scorer as someone that averaged 30 in the 90s. I don't think that means that. That's my thoughts on it. That's exactly where my mind went when I heard Tom Brady talk about skill and physicality. I was like, I remember when Adam Silver said the same exact thing and explained that he purposely set it up that way, right? And don't plan on going back because he said that's what we want to see. So let me know in the comment section, man. Is that what you want to see? You want to see the Hawks score 150 points 2 games in a row? That's what you want to see? And allow they're the first team to score 145 or more in consecutive games that also allow 145 or more. Because they barely won both of those games. They won by 2 or 3 points. So they scored close to 150 and their opponent scored close to 150 2 games in a row. And that's the part of NBA that Adam Silver think we want to see. We want to see very low defense of no opposition to scoring. Low defense. We want to see scoring in the 150s. That's an all-star game. And there's 0 defense played in the all-star game. So and then on top of that, you got all the best players and shot makers in the all-star game. So if there's no defense and you have the best players, and all-star games usually get 150, what does that mean for a regular game with the Hawks and some other random team to get 150? What does a regular team have to do to get all-star numbers in a regular game? Think about that. 150 is what an all-star team get. And we just seen the Hawks get it 2 games in a row, and they allowed that same amount. Does that tell you the Hawks is scoring on par with an all-star team, or does that tell you that the defense is just as horrible and lacking in a regular game as it is in the all-star game? That's what it tells me. It tells me that no defense in the all-star game, 150, no defense in the regular game, 150, right? There was no defense being played, and that's what the NBA want. So we're not watching actual basketball because basketball has every element of basketball. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you look at the scientific table and I'm looking at an element, let's say water, H2O, you got to have the same parts of hydrogen, the same parts of oxygen for it to actually be water. If you take one of those out, it's not water no more. That's what basketball is. Basketball is supposed to be offense and defense, skill and physicality, right? Mental toughness and physical toughness. It's supposed to be all of those things. That's what basketball is supposed to be. But you look at the offensive end, you're supposed to have elements of post game, mid range, free throws, 3-point, fast break, off ball, on ball. All of those things are supposed to be part of basketball, but they've taken post game out of basketball. Only people I see post up are the true centers when we only got 4 true centers. So I see Nurkic post up, I see Jokic post up, Embiid post up, sometimes Valanciunas post up, and there's some guards that are post up, like Garnett are going to high post, Devin Booker are going to mid post, but you got very few post ups. They've taken that out of the game. Post ups is out of the game. That's part of the game, but we taking it out. Defense is part of the game. They're taking it out. Mid-range part of the game, we've taken it out. So are we still watching basketball, or is it something else that we're watching? It's almost a new sport. But I'm rambling. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments.